Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. Thank you for being in class with us today. We broadcast 2 hours from high atop the Missouri Ozark Mountains. Kyle is engineering the broadcast in Minnesota. Guineith Isaacs is with us live in Australia. Welcome, Guineith.
Hello, Vincent. How are you this morning?
Not so good.
Not so good.
I'll tell you why.
What's happening?
We had a massive drought here during the summer, and we've had to sell our herd. We're down to 40% of what we had going into the summer. So we've sold calves, we've sold cows, but let me tell you how bad it is. I didn't realize how bad it was until about 3 minutes ago, when we picked up the check at the from the sale barn. There's auctions that happen all over the Midwest. Mm-hmm. So we packed up our calves and cows, and those who saw them said, "Wow, these are really nice cows." Grass-fed. Organic, not certified organic, but they are organic.
Yeah. Naturally raised cattle.
Absolutely. The price that we got for most of our cows, this is Black Angus. So, class, when you look at the labels and it says Black Angus, you say, wow.
Premium cattle.
Right.
Premium cattle.
80 to 90 cents a pound. 80 to 90 cents a pound. You can't raise them for that.
So that's talking about around about $400 to $500 for a beast.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Oh my gosh, that's just heartbreaking.
It is. So I looked up how much does it cost to buy. So if you want to buy grass-fed beef, you will pay between $6.50 and $6.75 per pound. Okay, we who actually raise it and do the work get 80 to 90 cents per pound. It's not going to work. It absolutely is not going to work. Now, if you want to buy a pound of beef, at the local market, ground beef, hamburger stuff, $3.87 a pound. That was in February. $3.87 a pound, but that's up over 12% from a year ago. So beef prices are up to the customer in some markets, but they are way down to the farmers in our area. Now, when I say roughly $6 a pound, $6.50, $6.75 a pound, that's not for filet mignon. That's not for a New York strip. That's not for a porterhouse. Those cost more. So the farmer is getting slammed, and I got to tell you, as I look out the window, I'm thinking, how is it that we're going to survive? It's impossible. Absolutely impossible. We have literally sold down. We'll probably make it through the winter, but at 40% of the herd that we had. And how long does it take to raise a cow, for market typically? About
2 years
30.
from conception.
Yeah. And it takes a year. Well, at least.
11-month gestation.
At least, okay? Typically 3.
Is it 9 or... No, actually, for cattle it's 9. Horses is 11.
Yeah.
Sorry, cattle is a 9-month gestation.
Yeah. So we're looking at a real uphill battle. 18
months at least.
The only way I think that we can survive this, and I'm not just talking, this is not woe is me. That's not why I'm doing this. Yeah, I'm bummed out. No question about it. But this is to show you that the little guy gets beat up all the time. All the time. Now, the packers, the meat packers, they'll have nothing to pack if we go away. So I think the new model is going to have to be really simple. We're going to have to sell direct from the farm, period. Cut out the middleman, cut out everybody else. Except for, we'll have a processor. Other than that, I don't see how we can survive, not just us. Our cost of production is probably among the lowest. Okay? Because we don't buy new tractors, we don't buy new equipment. Well, new to us, yeah, but a new tractor to us would probably be, 1985 model. Like 33 years old. That would be new to us. So our cost of production is lower than other guys. And we can fix our equipment ourselves. We don't have to call the dealer and have them come out and, fix our equipment. We do it. And we buy used parts wherever we can. So it's not like we're wasting money. And even though we are frugal, even though we are very kind to our animals, and what we do is we strip graze. What that means, class, is we have a field and we divide it up with electric fence. Electric fence is a fence that has, it's like ribbon, white ribbon, and there's 5 or 6 stainless steel fine wires in there, and we put an electric charge on the fence. Now you can slice up your cows with barbed wire, or you can use an electric fence. And we have both. Around the perimeter, we have barbed wire around the perimeter of our property. But we will take a field, let's say it's 40 acres, 40, which is 1/4 of a mile by 1/4 of a mile, and we'll divide it into strips. And we'll have these fence posts that you step into the ground. They're like, maybe 30 inches tall. And they have a curlicue at the top with an insulator on it. And there's a spot where you can press the fence post into the ground with your boot, and you put it in a line, and then you thread the wire.
Here in Australia, we call those pigtail posts.
Yes.
Because they literally do look like they've got a little pigtail on them.
That's right.
On the top.
And, we have hundreds of them, maybe 500 of those posts. And we have miles, maybe 20 miles of electric fence tape, literally, no exaggeration. And we have multiple fence chargers and multiple batteries for the ones that run on 12 volts. And we have other ones that run on 120 volts AC. Well, we step in those fence posts and divide that 40 acres, let's say, into 3 or 4 or 5 acres. And then tomorrow, we'll move that fence and add to it and give them another 3 or 4 or 5 acres, depending on, the weather, how much they're eating. And we make them eat the grass, and then we give them new grass. So that way they're not stepping in their poop. They're not lying in their poop. The mama cows are not
so easily.
Right. And that's what we do. Now, is that easier or harder than just throwing them out in the field and leaving them, in a 40-acre field? Well, it's harder. It takes more time. But the cows spend time with us. They're gentle. They're polite. They're well-behaved. They like us. We like them. We're a family. And they're better cows because they have less problems, less worms, less disease, less everything. And they're watched very carefully to make sure they have everything they need. Food and water, minerals, vitamins. Bottom line is, it's impossible to do this 24 hours a day, 365 days a year when you don't even break even. And then, of course, then the big, bad, disgusting, mean, ornery, in-your-face government corporation wants to tax us per head. In addition, they want a share of the beef. They probably charge as much as $20 per head per year. So they look at how many cows you have on January 1. They count them up with their satellite imagery. And if you don't report the right number of cows, they'll come after you with fines and unpaid taxes, haul you into the court. So it's miserable. It's miserable trying to do this and survive. Now, it's not miserable. If it were a fair game, it'd be great, but it's not. So the customer's paying more, and we're getting less. And the fees are going up. So when we go to sell a cow, we bring it to the market. They have a fee for keeping it overnight. They have a fee for, like a corral fee. They have a fee for the hay. They have a veterinarian fee. They have a fee for the beef organization. And there's like fee after fee after fee after fee after fee on top of, and then there's a commission for selling the cow. It's unbelievable. So I think the plan is, all right, you guys have just slammed us with fees. Okay. So we're just going to sell direct to the customer. Cut you all out. That's the only thing we can do. And that's what we're going to have to do. Do you have any thoughts on that, Guineith?
Well, all I can say is this is going to segue really nicely into what we're going to talk about today. If the rest of the class has no idea about, we're going to talk about piracy.
Yeah, that's what we are talking about.
This is absolute piracy. It really is. It's the government coming in with their boat, okay, and saying, "Oh, we'll take some of that of Yarties." That's what they're doing.
Yeah,
seriously.
Highway robbery or robbery on the seas.
Highway robbery. Yeah. Robber barons. They are the robber barons. They literally are the robber barons.
Yeah, before we get into the full-blown class on piracy, I want to mention something about the police that I saw on YouTube last night. We'll be right back. Guineith Isaacs. Guineith Isaacs is with us live in Australia. So, class, I just went to the internet and I typed in Whole Foods beef prices. Whole Foods space beef space prices. Result, organic grass-fed ground beef, that's a hamburger, on sale for $4.99 a pound. Figure $5 a pound.
Wow.
It's on sale. Regularly $7.99 a pound. That's $8 a pound. This is ground beef hamburger. So that's what we sell. I mean, we sell organic, grass-fed beef. They get $8 a pound regularly, $7.99. And now it's on sale just for one day. One day, $5 a pound, or $4.99. So the other guys,
a 1,000% markup.
Yeah. Well, darn close.
Wow.
Yeah. And these guys, that's where the money is. The guys that don't do the work, like Wall Street. How much work do they do? Virtually none. They're manipulators, right? They're middlemen. They make the money. The guys who actually do the work don't do so well. All right, so here's the story about the cops. Okay, so last night I was looking at the internet and I thought, what do you do when a cop comes to the door? And I found this YouTube video where there was a cop, middle-aged cop. And he was talking about what do you do when the police show up at your door. And he's full of himself. He's talking with his hands. He's the typical large California middle-aged cop.
Donut addict.
So, yeah. And so, what if they don't have a warrant and there's a knock on the door? And he talks about, well, they can, for you shouldn't open the door. Now, this is according to him. You should not open the door. Tell them, there's nothing going on here. Why are you here? No, you can't come in without a warrant. And hopefully they'll go away. But if they see somebody running through the door, meaning they're looking through the door, you're talking to them in the background, they see somebody running upstairs, well, they might use that as probable cause. Or, so if they see, feel, smell, taste, or hear something, they're going to use that against you.
What if you've got like a 13 or 14-year-old tall kid, and they're just gone downstairs and they've had a BLT sandwich or something, and then they've got to really get upstairs quickly to get their turn on the video game.
Yeah.
And they're like 5'8", 5'10", because they're a tall teenager, and they're just been in the kitchen. They have no idea that you're at the door. They have no idea, but they've just gone to the kitchen to get an orange juice. Or maybe they're watching Games of Thrones and the ad's on, and they went downstairs to go to the toilet and to get an orange juice and a BLT sandwich, and then they've got their orange juice and their BLT sandwich. They're racing back up the stairs because, the show's going to start again soon.
Yeah. Well, according to what I saw yesterday on this video, the police might say that's probable cause. Huh? Yeah. Now, especially, now this was not in the video, but especially if, let's say, that person was in boxer shorts. Okay. Now it's is this pedophilia? What's going on? Who's upstairs in the room with that child? Right? Is it? You know what I'm saying? They can extrapolate this into making it into something that it's absolutely not. So then this cop is so full of himself. He's F this, F that, F the other thing. And, he's using this language, standard police communications, which is unacceptable in my opinion. So you look at this guy, and from a distance you might think he might be a nice next door neighbor. But when you hear him talk, he's a thug. Okay? He's a thug. And then he talks about, things that he starts telling stories, things that have happened. Like he burst into this house, just bashes the door down, wrong house. Oh, it's a grandmother in there. Sorry, ma'am, wrong house. We meant the one next door. Okay? But he's laughing about it.
Really?
He thinks, he thinks this is funny.
What if the old lady had a heart attack, and then she's dead the next day?
Right.
Oh my gosh, these people got no conscience.
Yep. And let's say, the cop says to you, "Hey, I'm talking to you," and you back away. Twist your shoulders. I'll tell you when you come back. So I'm paraphrasing here, class. That so the cop comes to your door, and let's say you make the mistake and you let him in. Okay. Once they're in, they keep pushing in. They don't back up. Cops don't like to give up territory. So if you make the mistake and he says, "Hey, listen, I just want to talk to you." And you go, "We can talk through the door." And he says, "I want to talk to you in person." And he kind of is pushy, and and you feel, well, I guess I need to be polite. You don't need to be polite. But if you make that mistake, according to this video, and let's say he comes closer to you, and then you think he's going to touch you. You think the cop might touch you, so you twist your shoulders a little bit. Then he realizes that he can use that against you. And then he says, "Hey, you're resisting. You are resisting." And he grabs you, throws you on the ground, and uses force. Well, then he has to fill out this form about the use of force. Well, once he fills out all this paperwork, the last thing he wants to do is not look good. So then you go to court. For what? Resisting. And actually all you did was you didn't want him to touch you. But you're resisting. Your failure to comply with an officer's orders. And he thinks this is funny. This cop thinks this is funny. So I think they are not our friends. Okay? I don't want them on our property. So if these guys show up on the farm and they knock on the door and they don't have a warrant, I'm going to tell them, I don't want to engage with them. I don't have anything to say to them. Nothing is happening to warrant their interest. Leave now. That's my response. Now, it could escalate. Okay? They could say, oh, yeah? Who do you think you are? We're the police. You just own the place, Finelli. Could escalate. They could throw me down. It could end up really bad in lots of levels and lots of ways. But we've got to make a stand. We've got to defend our homes and our property from these guys.
I fully agree. If they come up to my land, if they step on my property, there's a $10,000 fine for them, which currently I think that their fine, is running at about $100,000 that they owe me. Okay, and I can go to court and I can file suit against them because on multiple occasions, multiple officers have trespassed on my land and have refused to leave when requested numerous times. And I say to them, if they come to my gate, I'm going to be frosted. My dogs are going to go wild because my dogs hate them as well because they know that these people with these, this funny car, these funny suits and these funny sirens really, really upset Mum. And they are going to be frosted at the gate, and they're going to bark, and they're going to draw my attention. I'm going to race down there, and I'm going to get in their face, and I'm going to tell them to get off my land.
Well, I made it public.
That's my response. I've got zero tolerance for these people anymore. They have done so much damage to us, and you know something? That what they're doing, and the reason why they think that they've got all these rights and all the rest of it, maybe they don't even realize this, but it's because they're operating under Admiralty law, which once again goes back to they are pirates. They are actually privateers, which is a type of pirate. A privateer is a government-sponsored pirate. So we're talking about Sir Henry Morgan, we're talking about Sir Francis Drake. They think they're Henry Morgan and Francis Drake. And if you want to know who those guys are, go and look them up on the internet. Because they were not very nice people. They had a government contract back in the day to go and knock off whoever they wanted to knock off with a free pass from the government of their day, which was the British Crown. And these police are no different. They're privateers.
I was attacked on stage by one of the alleged board of directors who was running for re-election at the Laclede Electric Cooperative annual meeting in August, just months ago. And he said, I went to Mr. Finelli's website and it says, and he read this. Let me read this to you. Now, if you want to find out what I'm talking about, if you just type in USA Prepares, comma, fine, F-I-N-E. So you go to your favorite search engine, type in USA Prepares, comma, the word fine, F-I-N-E. You'll see a post that says, no littering, fine $10,000 to $1 million. We strive to USA Prepares. Now, let me read what the post says. This is on my website, USA Prepares. Title says, and this is a quote, okay? This whole thing I'm going to tell you until I say end quote is a quote. Quote, no littering, fine $10,000 to $1 million. We strive to keep it clean and safe for our animal family. This includes space junk. Posted Vincent Finelli, April 1st, 2018. And it says, if any litter is found on our farm, those responsible are subject to fines of $10,000 to $1 million. This includes cans, bottles, bags, balloons at $10,000 per piece, and space junk at $1 million per piece. All litter will be held as evidence. Poaching Road hunting and trespass fines are $10,000 per incident per person. Vincent Finelli. End quote. That's what I said. So this guy reads that and says, how about a little civility? And he's trashing me on stage. And I have no recourse. I can't respond to this guy because he says I'm not civil because I don't want people trashing our farm, shooting from the road hunting. I don't want them poaching. I don't want them throwing bottles that break onto the farm where the cows get sliced up by them. I don't want them eating balloons. I don't want space junk, which is probably radioactive, landing on our farm and causing an EPA hazard cleanup, which would probably force us off our farm from some piece of radioactive space junk. So if that happens, I want $1 million. Now, if you think about it, how much is a farm worth? Let's say you go to a farm, a typical farm in Missouri, and it's got tractors and trailers and trucks and a house and barns and animals and implements and creeks and infrastructure. Is it possible that it could be worth $1 million? Absolutely. Absolutely. If someone said to me, tell you what, Finelli, here's $1 million. Go find 240 acres and build a farm and get it operational in 30 days. I couldn't do it.
Much change out of that $1 million.
I couldn't do it. I couldn't get everything in place, up and running in a month with $1 million. I couldn't do it. It took us 13 years to get to this point. But before that, it took us another maybe 18 years. And we brought everything with us. So we're looking at well over 30 years, 3 decades to get to this point. I can't do it in 30 days, even with $1 million. $1 million is not enough. And so this guy trashed me by saying that I was not civil. I think I'm plenty civil. The government says...
I think we've been too civil.
Absolutely. You see signs along the road.
Mistaken our kindness for weakness.
Right.
You know, I'm not saying that we should go out and with violence against these people, but I am saying that we should stand our ground.
Well, I saw a guy road hunting.
Violent ones. That's
I saw a guy. Mm-hmm. There's a guy in a truck. It was getting dark. It was just when you couldn't see, and there he was with his rifle shooting from the road onto our farm. He was on the dirt road, shooting across the fence onto our field. I saw him. I was waiting for him. I saw him. I pulled up to him. I said, "You're under arrest." He looked at me and hit the gas pedal and took off. And a truck chase ensued. His engine was a little more powerful than mine, and he got away. I don't know what would have happened if I caught him. And I don't want to speculate on the air. But I'm not taking it anymore. I'm not taking it. You know, what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong, and it's really clear to me. It's black and white what's wrong. Some guy throws his beer cans, beer bottles, pizza boxes out the window over the fence. See, the problem is there's not a lot of distance between the edge of the road and our fence. And I'm not going to give the county any more land. You know, they might say, well, hey, we'd like 25 feet. Stuff it. They're not going to get 25 feet. My fence is, within a couple feet of the road. And so is our neighbors across the road. We don't want the county taking any more of our land. They've already stolen enough land. They've stolen the road. They've actually confiscated land from us and our neighbors and built a road. They've already stolen it. That's it. No more. No more. So we've taken a stand on pretty much everything. Pretty much everything. And, the guys who will take a baseball bat and bash down our mailbox and then throw it in the ditch, hundreds of feet away, and then go on to the next mailbox and do the same thing? I'd like to meet them. I'd like to have a little encounter with them. I've had it. Enough's enough. I'm going to take the commercial break that we're going into to calm down. Let's see if I can do it. We'll be right back. In 1975, there was a movie, and it was called Network, Network. And there's a news anchor, and his movie name was Howard Beale. And his quote is pretty famous. He's annoyed. Here's the quote. Quote, "I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore." End quote. That's where I am. So I bought a set of books. It's called The Best Damn Garage in Town. It was written by Smokey Yunick. It was about 1,100 pages. And I bought it, and this guy, I mentioned the story on the air. The guy I bought it from changed the price. First it was to include shipping for $150. Then he wanted $17.50 more for shipping. And I had to agree. So I bought it. And he put it in a flat rate box, 2 inches of room on, most sides. This thing rattled around. It's a really heavy volume, three volume set in a case, cardboard case, heavy board case. And the case was split. I was frosted. I mean, who is this jerk? Because in my world, when I buy it and I pay for it, it's mine. Even though he has possession of it, it's mine. And it's his responsibility to take care of it the best he can when he ships it to me. Well, he didn't do that. He just threw the 3-volume set in the case, in a box. It rattled around, and it came with the case split and lots of wear marks on the case. I was frosted. And he sent me an email. How did I do? My response, paraphrasing, not so good. So I sent him another email, communicated through eBay. Finally, I said, I would like the full refund for shipping, $17.50, because of your carelessness damaging my property. No response. So I initiated a claim against him on eBay. Now, this is only $17.50, but as Howard Beale said, I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore. So I said to him, I'd like this refund, this partial refund, just for the shipping. And if that doesn't work well for you, I will escalate it to PayPal. He responds by saying, I want pictures. Now I'm really frosted. One, because he doesn't believe me. He wants pictures. I'm not going through all this hassle because of this guy's carelessness. He knew he was careless. He knew that this was going to get damaged. So he wants to make more work for me? Then he decided early this morning that he was going to honor my request because he knew that I was not going to give up. Another story. So I bought this old car, 1968 station wagon. Bought it a few days ago. And it was a vehicle that hauled Brad Pitt around. I don't care about, whether it hauled Brad Pitt around. I bought it because it had an engine and a transmission and running gear and a lot of parts that would fit our AMXs, of which we have two 1968 AMXs. The engine is the same bolt pattern. It had a 343 cubic inch engine in it. They aren't around. But it came with the whole car. Wheels, hood, glass, seats, instruments, steering, running gear. I mean, it's all there. and had been stored for a long time in a storage container. So I bought it, and I had a couple questions. So I called the seller. The seller said, I've got all the service records. I've got the old carburetor. And I said, okay, I like it. Well, then he withholds the service records. Well, they can't give them to you because, I found them in a bag in the car. I can't give you the service records. Really? He found them in a bag in the car, and he won't give them to me. Huh. But he says that he has them. And I see him. I'll tell you the rest of the story when we come back. Yes, I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore. I'll tell you the rest of the story when we come back. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. And we're taking a small detour, but we're talking about piracy, and which leads into the quote from Network film, 1975 film classic, the movie. It's called Network. Howard Beale, the news anchor, said it, and I feel exactly this way. And the quote is, I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore. End quote. So in that pursuit, I'm going to tell you what I did. So I bought this old 1968 American Motor station wagon, and it's complete. And actually, I can drive it in and out of the barn, but, it's got all kinds of problems like brakes. And so the seller on the phone told me that he worked on it, and he repaired some of it. And when I looked at it, it looked like the intake manifold had been taken off. Okay. So he told me he took it off. Well, and he told me that he had the carburetor for it, and he had the old service records, but he wouldn't give them to me. He had a lot of them, like a fistful of them, but he wouldn't give them to me. And I couldn't understand that because he found them in the car that he bought. So he told me on the phone that he had them. Why wouldn't they go along with the car? What's the big deal? I don't get it. So I paid him what he asked for it. I said, okay, so here's what what do you really want for the car in cash? And he told me $1,300. So I gave him $1,300 for it. Put the car in a tow dolly, and we pulled it home with the truck. Okay. And so I called him back, a couple days later. I had a couple questions. And what I wanted to know was, when he took the valve covers off and the intake manifold, did he remove the push rods? Because they wear, okay? And this vehicle has over 100,000 miles on it. They wear in. So you want to put them same side up as they came out. And if you take the lifters out, you want to put the lifters in the same holes. It has 16 valve lifters. And if he didn't, it would have ruined the cam, and I'd have to put a new cam and new lifters in it, and new push rods and new rocker arms, and. So I just had that question. So I called him up, and I said, hey, I just, you have an old Oldsmobile 442 that you restored. I wanted to tell you about the correct engine oil to use, because if you don't use the right engine oil, you'll destroy the flat tappet camshaft. And I have a couple questions about the American Motor station wagon. Can you call me back? Here's my number. No call. So I called him back, left a message, no call, called him back a bunch of times. No return. So here's what I finally said. I called him and I said, I called you many times, left messages, and I haven't heard from you. Here's my number. Please call me back. If you can't, I'll come see you in a week or two. Do you know what? He called me right back because he knew I was going to his house. Then he told me the reason he didn't call me back was he said, you seem like a detailed kind of guy, and I didn't want to answer your questions. Now, how is that possible that a person who sells somebody something for $1,300 doesn't want to talk to the person that bought it? What is the problem? I don't get it. But he had the answers that he could tell me in 5 minutes that would solve me a lot of headache. But he didn't want to do it.
He just couldn't be bothered.
Well, that gets back to what Howard Beale said. I'm mad as hell. Now, was I polite? Absolutely. My wife said to me, she met the guy. She said, I can't believe he wouldn't call you back. Why? We were nice. We were polite. We paid him what he wanted. We didn't beat him down. On the internet, he said he wanted $1,500. And then I said, will you hold it while I, hook up my truck and tow dolly to come over there? It's a 100-mile round trip. He said, well, if you'll pay me full price. I said, on the phone, I said, I can't do that. I can't pay you full. I haven't seen it. But I will come out there. I will make the trip. I will look at it. I will probably buy it, but I can't say I'm going to give you full price because I haven't seen it. He said, okay, I'll hold it for you. So he held it for me. And then when we were ready to finalize the deal, I said, so how much do you need for it? In cash right now. It'll be out of here in 45 minutes if we agree. He said $1,300. I said, okay. It's not like I beat him down, said this is bad, that's bad, the other thing's bad. It's not like that. I looked at it pretty quickly. I looked underneath it, looked inside it, looked at the engine, asked a few questions, and we were ready to buy it. So back to, I'm not taking it anymore. And that's with everything. And the answer, and I told him what's wrong with the new motor oil and how it will destroy his Oldsmobile 442, which he restored to immaculate condition. He's probably got $75,000 in this original price $3,000 Oldsmobile from 1960s.
Wow.
And I wanted to help him. And I did. So we're back to people are having a tough time getting along with each other, and I don't get it. I sold a calf to a gal, and, over the weekend, and if she called me and said, hey, I got a couple questions about that, 3-week-old calf. You have some time for me? Of course I would. And this is over $280. Of course I would help her. I don't get it. What's happened to society that we've become like this? It's frustrating. So
yeah, you know what I reckon it is, Vincent?
I'd love to know. I really would.
I reckon. Okay, I have noticed this myself. And Archie, my husband, he also mentioned it when he was alive. And I don't think that this quote originates from him. I'm sure that somebody said it earlier than what he did. But he said a well-armed society is a polite society. That's what he used to say. And as soon as people stop being well-armed, as soon as, people become frightened to stand up for themselves, then the politeness goes out of society and people begin to treat each other wrong. But when you've got a society, any society, where the men wear swords in public, where they have pistols holstered on their belt and they walk around, it's actually really, really, really rare in those sorts of societies for people to have duels on the streets. And, we have been trained through our school system to think the opposite. But, for instance, if you look at the Japanese people, if you go to Japan today, okay, everybody bows to everybody. Everybody's so polite. Everybody's so sweet. Everybody's so nice to each other. They have basically no firearms ownership and no public carrying of weapons in Japan anymore. But what they have is they have martial arts where you can break a man's neck with your hands. And you don't know if that guy that you're talking to is actually trained in that martial art where he can break your neck with his hands in about half a second. So it's a very polite society because there is a proportion of people in that society who are completely martial. And not only that, you have the Yakuza And from the outside, you genuinely cannot tell who is involved in the Yakuza and who is not. That's the mafia, the Japanese mafia. Okay, so it's a very, very polite society, and Japan's a beautiful place to live. They have gorgeous temples, you know, the food's great, people are great, everything. But scratch the surface, and you've got a completely martial society that when they go to war are absolutely terrifying. And Texas is another example. Very, very nice, good, polite people, and they have open carry. Does that make sense, Vincent? So any time where people lose that martial attitude, the politeness goes out of society. People treat each other wrong because they think they can.
One of our instructors lives in California, and I've known him for years. And he had a handgun. He had the proper paperwork as required by the communist state of California to possess it. And it was stolen. And it was a couple of years ago.
Get out of there!
It was reported as stolen.
Sorry, I just had to tell my dog off.
It was reported as stolen, and he decided that with the fires that are in California right now and the things that are happening, he probably needed to get it replaced really fast. So he did. So he has a replacement handgun. And this ties to what we've been talking about. There's an article that I was reading last night about some people who had a barricade across the road, and the barricade said, looters will be shot on sight. So now we have people who have decided that in order to keep people polite, they'll let them know that if you try to steal their property, they are armed with rifles, and they'll kill you. Now, is that any different from what I might do? I don't think so. I don't think so. So in terms of defending our property, if we had people that wanted to steal things from us, I think it would be a rough go of it. I'll say it that way. Now, I understand that you can't kill someone for stealing your property, but if you're threatened, if people are coming on our property with guns, I'm going to feel threatened. No question about it. Who wouldn't? We got Dan in Missouri on hold. We've got George in New Hampshire on hold. Dan, you called in first. Welcome.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Vince. You were asking why we've got people acting like they're acting. Well, this probably isn't the only reason, but Vince, I think we've got a lack of decent role models. I mean, with the number of hours that young people spend on the television and they have for years. We got cops trying to bust bad guys in the cities for dealing drugs, but I don't know if that's good enough. And we've got broken families, no men around, and mom's working herself to death, two or three jobs, and the kids come home and nobody's there, and there's just a lack of role models. We don't have,
Dan Sutterfield, we don't have any role models. You're absolutely right. I can't think of one role model that, of course there's Dr. Norman Shealy, but not everybody knows about Dr. Shealy. He's a great role model. But how many, you can't look up to ball players. They're out of control. You can't look up to Robert De Niro. You can't look up to big butt Kim Kardashian. You can't look up to these tattooed, pierced, disfigured individuals who are paying for it. You can't look up to the actors and actresses because they're impersonators. Who can we look up to?
They go under the knife to change their gender, for God's sakes.
Right. They don't, we've got a triathlon winner, Bruce Jenner. He doesn't know whether to wear a skirt or what. Actually, I guess he does know. He thinks he's supposed to wear a skirt. We have a lot of twisted people. out there in the media, mainstream media, parades these twisted, sick deviates in front of us, and we're supposed to think it's okay. It's not okay. We're boycotting certain things here at the farm. One is Robert De Niro. He used some extremely foul language recently. It's F this, F that, right? Well, now it's MF. Really? Robert De Niro? Do you think that we're supposed to like you? That's Robert De Niro. Dan, you're absolutely right. No role models. So how do we get role models? I'm not so sure.
With the broken families like we've got and no supervision many hours of the day, and then the kids are institutionalized in our public education system, they're not even getting decent history there. So, Vince, I don't know. But I do have a lighter note.
Okay.
You talk about vehicles a lot.
I do.
And I don't work for these people, but I'm intrigued in watching it. Have you heard of the new Elio automobile company?
Yes.
I don't know if he'll ever make it to market. I'll be surprised if they don't kill him, to be perfectly honest.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's an incredible thing to follow, and he says it's like 95% American made. Whether you can work on it or not is another story. But it intrigues me. 84 miles to the gallon, $7,450. If he could bring it to market now, he's been messing with this for 4, 5, 6 years.
Yeah, and there was another guy that tried something like that, and he was actually successful with it. His name was Adolf Hitler, and he no, really, I'm serious.
People's car.
The
Volkswagen.
It actually is.
Yeah, and he was successful with it. And one of the things, I have an advertisement in a book that I bought about that, and for $5 a week, you could actually own one. So if they went into production, the workers were paid to work at the factory, but they also chipped in, if they wanted to buy a vehicle on time, and they could do it. And Ford did the same thing. I mean, Henry Ford's customers were the workers at his factory as well. So it's not like Adolf Hitler figured this out by himself. He probably picked up on Ford's model. As a matter of fact, Ford was involved with the Nazis. I know this for a fact. I have a lapel pin. I have a men's lapel pin that has the Nazi swastika on one side. Connected to it is the blue Ford oval. Hey, I appreciate your call, Dan.
Hey, thank you, Vince. Take care.
Thank you so much. George in New Hampshire is going to be up with us in just a few minutes after bottom of the hour commercial announcements and break. George is an instructor at USA Prepares. We'll be right back. Guineith is with us live in Australia. George in New Hampshire has joined us via telephone. Welcome, George.
Hi, Vincent. Hi, Guineith. I just like to make two quick points. One is Ford was, believe it or not, the number one car in Germany right up that was selling between, say, in the 80s and the 90s was the Ford Escort, because I guess most Germans were priced out of the Audis, the BMWs, the Mercedes, and probably even the Volkswagens. But they said Ford's plants during World War II, they said the employees at the Ford plants in Germany were the only ones who didn't have to head for the air raid shelters when the bombers were coming over, because there were strict orders given not to bomb Ford plants in Germany. But they said that one time inadvertently they were accidentally bombed, and Ford demanded and got restitution and compensation for the bombs and the bomb damage.
You know, what you're saying is that government corporations are run by other corporations, even back in the 1940s. Yes.
Yeah. And the other thing I'd just say is just that in 1915, Ford was not anti-Semitic. He wasn't against the Jewish people. But in 1915, he went on a cruise across the Atlantic Ocean. And they said somehow or other, somebody got to him and told him about the Zionist plot that eventually took over, Russia The Soviet Union came out of it and whatnot, and they were talking about the bad Zionists, not necessarily the good Jewish people. And they said he came off that cruise convinced that this was a menace against the world, and they said that was one of the reasons why he was so instrumental in helping Hitler to power. He wasn't alone in that. I'd just like to say one other thing, if I could, on something that Guineith said, Vin, and Gwen, is that Gwen, you made a good point about the Yakuza, or they could be mafiosi, whatever it was. But you said you don't know who you're talking to when you meet somebody, and you look appearances can be deceiving. And I remember when I worked on the post office, I remember one day they had a new, very posh hotel go up in the city that I was substituting in. And it just so happened I had 2 weeks on that route because the regular man was out on vacation and whatnot. And I went into the lobby, and the staff there was looking down their noses. Here I am, just a postman. And they told me I was only a few steps away, within 20 feet of the mailroom where I would just proceed to just deliver the mail to the various, boxes and whatnot in there. And they told me, oh, no, you have to go around to the back. So I told them, I said, listen, this is the way I was told to do it. This is the way I'm going to do it. In the back of my mind, I said, like Hell, I'm going all the way in the back. I said, when it's just a few steps away. So about a couple of days later, I noticed this man trying to get some assistance because I guess they demanded they were the second delivery on the route from the beginning. And they wanted their mail first. Of course, again, that elitist mentality. So I could see he wasn't getting too much cooperation, or they were kind of looking at him like they didn't know what to do up there. So I walked over to him. I said, and he was wearing like a sweater that was a little bit too large for him. He's a slight man. And I said to myself, look at this poor clerk. They're ganging up on him. I could have some sympathy for what I went through with him. So I said, listen, I'm doing that route for the next 2 weeks. I said, don't worry about it. I said, I'll deliver them for us. I said, and he goes, you'll do that for me? I said, yeah. I said, no problem. So he was surprised. So I walked away, and I kept my word. Well, wouldn't you know, 6 months later, come to find out there was some sort of a disagreement, and I'm called into the office with the superintendent. I didn't know it, but the man who was in that sweater that was too large for him, very slight, he was the superintendent. And he looked at me, and I told him what actually happened. So I'm just saying, like you say, you never know who you're talking to, but you should be nice to people anyway, just because they're human beings. Right?
That's right.
I think that's the way you are, Vin. You are, Guineith. We're real. I mean, we're for real. We treat people the way we want to be treated.
Yep, that's right. But if somebody crosses us, they're going to have their hands full.
Okay. Well, I guess I should own up to this. I was teaching college, and there was one guy who was pretty arrogant. I mean, he was really, really arrogant. And he was rough on the students, and it didn't set well with me. Always angry. And so the mailroom at the college would open up all the mail, take the contents out, put a paperclip on the mail and the envelope. And it was like a service. The mail was opened, for everybody. So I got in my desktop publishing. This is, back in the early 90s. So I created some stationery from a fictitious corporation called SCI. Got a brown envelope, and in very tiny letters under the big return address SCI, it said Small Condoms Incorporated, and a fictitious return address. On the inside, it had SCI, Small Condoms Incorporated, and it thanked him for his order. This would be the person that was the recipient of this mail. It thanked him for his order and told him that the company was out of stock, but be assured that it would be sent very quickly in the same discreet, plain brown package. The mail woman opened it up, put it on his desk, And that was my response to him being, mean. And we just put him right in his place. So I guess he became the laughingstock of the college.
I think that's very clever.
Well, sometimes I have more time than others.
I think that's hilarious. But it's actually true. You never really know who you're talking to. And, when I met my husband, Archie, he was living with 10 people, including his 5 children, in a 2-bedroom terraced house in a bad part of town. The house stank. The whole district was rat infested. It was not just his house, because they were terrace houses and the rats had made their own run over 100 years. Nobody could get rid of them. And yet he was actually quite, he was retired. He'd, become a Christian. He'd gone to Bible college. He'd become a minister of religion. But, there's one thing about the underworld. You never really retire from the underworld. You can't. Before he became a Christian, before he became a minister, he was actually quite a high-ranking gangster in the Glaswegian underworld, and then came to Melbourne and then became involved in the underworld in Melbourne. And, but I didn't know this, but I met some of his friends later and I went, oh my gosh. But by then I was already in love with him. And, but you couldn't tell from the outside because he was the nicest, sweetest, kindest guy. And, something? Now I've got 2 absolutely delightful sons. They're growing up to be really, really fine gentlemen. And do you know what it is, Vincent?
They carry guns?
I raised them as a single mother.
Mm-hmm.
It's the genetics.
Yeah.
If you want a good dog, you make sure you get a good dog, and you make sure you get a good female dog, and then you'll get good puppies. Mm-hmm. You've got to be like that, and I think that people have not been selective enough with the people that they choose to breed with, and that's a lot of the reason why you've got a lot of problems that you've got now. I raised my sons as a single mother because my husband died when my younger child was 3 months old. But I made sure that I made raising my children to be a priority. I tried to always arrange things so that I was at home, even if it meant greater economic hardship, because I wasn't going out to work. And it meant, we've been living on a shoestring for years, but it's okay. We survived. The boys are just about grown up now. One boy's left home, lives with his girlfriend on their horse ranch. And, the other boy, he's grown up and is starting to become a gentleman, instead of a little kid. And it's going well, but it's how you raise them. It's the care and the attention that you give to them. It's actually being there for your children, because you only get one chance at it. And if you don't get it right, the implications of that are going to echo down through the generations. Because if I didn't raise these kids right, they would have gone wild, because that's their epigenetics. Okay, they are from a wild strain of human, and if they were canines, they'd probably be wolves. Actually, I realized a long time ago, people are very, very much like dogs. Some people are poodles, some people are Labradors and golden retrievers, and some people are wolves. And there's nothing wrong with a wolf. But if you're going to be a wolf owner or a wolf dog owner, you've got to make sure that you're paying attention. And as it is, they are well-disciplined, very fine young gentlemen. They're not going to create problems in the world. They're not going to grow up to be career criminals or whatever. But you've got to be aware. I have always had to be aware of their epigenetics and to recognize I've got to get it right with these boys. They're going to go on to achieve great things in this world. But if I had just gone off and worked a 50-hour week and left those kids to themselves, I shudder to think what they would be like by now.
Yeah. When we were asked by the university, so what's Mrs. Finelli doing now? What level of achievement has she reached? I filled out the form and said she has received her CHM, Certified Housewife and Mother. The highest and best thing she could do. George, do you have other comments you'd like to make?
Oh, I'd just like to say that I know that you had to take your children out of an area where there were certain child molesting ring that were going after.
That's right.
Right. And I know that, even in this, like I say, the agenda is with those groups. And as we say, you can't tell always by just looking at somebody, but my understanding is
who they are. Yep.
Right. But there are elements, not just the child molesters themselves, but those groups and individuals that want to see and degrade a society by attacking the most vulnerable in our future generations that are supposed to keep the country up and build it up further. They could be a judge, they could be a doctor. And when they break up a lot of these rings, they find lawyers, they find doctors. I mean, they come from all walks of life. But you have these people who aid and abet this, and I remember there's an old Vietnamese saying that just stuck in my mind, and it says, and I'm not taking it away from the single mothers, but you know and I know, if you had your druthers, Guineith, you'd wish to God for any number of reasons that your husband was able to be there by your side, raising those children and being a father while you be the mother. But in other words, you did a good job, but in other words, I know it wasn't easy by any stretch that someone who hasn't gone through it wouldn't realize, say. But I'll just say that they say that a home without a father is like a house without a roof. And these predators will go after the vulnerable. They're sickly wolves. They're not like the regular, normal wolves that you see in a society that basically... They're basically the leaders, or, they have those traits that if they're not channeled towards decent things, you a lot of mischief. But you got a lot of sickly, perverted, twisted creatures that basically are out there.
Were total predators. They really were.
And like I say, but they went after someone because if your husband was around, let's just say, that would have been squashed.
Oh, they wouldn't have lived.
Right, and they wouldn't even have tried because they would have taken one look. I remember I was separated. I won't go on, and I'll just say I remember I was separated one time from my boy's mother. And I remember one time I went over, I had visitation, so I'd go over to pick up my sons. But I remember one day there was somebody living in the apartment building. I'd see him. He looked to be like maybe about 30 years old. He always wore sunglasses and a hat. And I noticed one day I was across the street. I had pulled up, and I looked over at my son, and standing by his side was this individual. And in that instant, I think something registered with him that when he looked over, my son told me later, well, he was letting me borrow movies, like regular movies, whatnot, and like befriending him. And in that instance, even with the sunglasses, I couldn't see his eyes. But there was just something about the body language that, in other words, when I look back on it, I realized that he had basically assessed me.
This guy was a predator.
Well, but he looked at me, and he realized, even though I was good-natured, there was a side to me, as I know, Vincent, you have this side too, as most men do. But, I mean, where if you touch our family, he just assessed it in an instant, and I could tell later when I just revisited it that it dawned on me that he knew he was going to have a problem with me, and basically I was glad my former wife just had moved from there, and everything was fine. But in other words, I kept the presence there. But God only knows what could have happened if I hadn't been around. Because, again, he was targeting somebody whose father wasn't able to be there 24/7.
Yep.
And no words passed, but it was just something that and I'm sure you've had this happen to you, Vincent. I'm sure, Guineith, you've had it happen to you, where without words being said, sometimes you could see the whole picture.
You just realize
clearly.
stuff.
I'm sorry?
Yep. You just realize
No, I hear what you said, Guineith.
Nobody has
to sign off, and I'll let you go, but it was nice talking to both of you.
Hold on one second, George. You said something very, very important, and my jaw dropped when you said it. And that's how they look at the Finelli family. They don't look at just one of us. They look at us as a clan to be dealt with. So they look at us as, if someone hurts one of us, they've got a problem with all of us. That's the point. And it's a very well-made point, George. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
We should all be like that.
God bless.
Guineith, thank you.